After leaving Lisbon almost a year ago, I struggled to find inspiration for the longest time, and honestly I didn't know what, who or where to photograph, and I wasn't quite sure about the type of videos, like the type of content that I was going to keep on creating for YouTube. And this was definitely a very challenging period for me, and something that I struggled with for quite a few months. After getting to knowing this new area of Portugal and this sort of creative uncharted territory, I started driving around and finding potential locations for both photographs and videos. And I think that with time, which was only recently by the way, I came to accept the fact that I had to adapt to a new style and just changing my mindset and getting used to all of the new opportunities that I have around me with this brand new beautiful landscape. I mean, I live right by the ocean. It's like a 2 or 3 minute walk to the beach. And I think I was stuck inside this mold, like the kind of work that I was doing back in Lisbon, and I used to go to 2 or 3 locations that were like my safe locations because I knew that I was always going to be able to make a specific type of content. So yeah, I basically adapted and I can finally start making new content and new videos and new photos, just like the ones that I've been putting out recently. I just wanted to share that with you. One thing I've been finding that's really cool actually about this part of Portugal, and it's basically when I drive around and I spot random stuff to shoot, like locations and subjects and whatnot, I found that there's a lot of old cars that people still drive around this part of Portugal. And if you know me outside of YouTube, you probably know that I'm a bit of a car nerd, especially like old cars. I just love them, like the aesthetics, and that's a whole subject, like a topic for a different video, because I could talk about it for like hours probably. But yeah, I said that because finding all of these cool new locations and all of these cars just made me start thinking about a photographer that I really like and whose work I really enjoy and respect, and that is Brian Burks.
Alright guys, welcome to the video. Today I have the 4x5 with me, and I think I'm going to try to do a video of how I photograph strangers. Basically, I'm just going to be driving around today and looking for maybe possibly a car or two, and then maybe going up and knocking on the door.
I personally love Brian for several reasons, including the fact that he's always been quite vocal about his thoughts and concerns, but in regards to his work, I definitely love the way he captures strangers on large format, and especially the ones that include cars, as they feel like an extension of the subject's personality, and they kind of provide a bit more insight about their lives. And I don't know, I just find that kind of stuff fascinating. Brian's work is obviously a huge source of inspiration to me, and if you haven't seen any of his work, I'll link his channel in the video description so you can check it out for yourself. I don't know about you, but I'm not a very socializing kind of person, although I do love meeting new and interesting people who have an interesting background or a life story or just a regular story that they could share, and something that I can indulge in a deep and interesting conversation. I swear this will make sense in a bit. This is just a segue for the topic of the video, so just bear with me. Anyway, in many of my car drives, I spot these cool looking cars driving around, or a lot of the times they're just parked, and I always try and take a note of the color of the car and the make of the car and the model, the location, and if possible, I try and take a quick snap with my phone just so I can cross-check the notes that I take with a photo of the actual car. This was what happened with Luis and his car, a beautiful Lancia Delta. At the time, I'd driven multiple times by the car, and I always thought to myself that it would be really awesome to just being able to take photos of the car and the owner. The car isn't sitting in like a really cool driveway or anything like that. It's actually sitting on the sidewalk right next to this really dull looking wall, which isn't like an interesting subject or anything like that. I don't think it's good for the photos. One day I spotted Luis taking some shopping bags out of the car's trunk, and I thought to myself, wow, like today's the day. I'm gonna stop the car and just walk towards this guy and let him know about the project that I wanna work on. But as per usual, I got really nervous, and I basically went back and forth past this guy like 4 or 5 times, something ridiculous like that, and ended up just getting annoyed and decided to head back home. But after a few minutes, I was coming back home and I just got thinking about the whole situation, and I thought to myself, you're gonna go back and you're gonna talk to this guy, because what's the worst that could happen? Just be honest and be upfront about what you want to do. And basically that's what I did. I went back. Luis was actually just entering his house, and I just decided to give him a few minutes because he was carrying all of these shopping bags, so I didn't want to be like abrupt. So I gave him a few minutes and I just knocked on the door. He came out, I introduced myself, I said that I do photography and I would love to take photos of his car and, if possible, take photos of him next to it. And yeah, in the end, I ended up talking to Luis. And basically, all of my fear, my nerves, my anxiety, whatever you want to call it, they were all in vain, because as soon as I introduced myself and asked him if I could take pictures of the car and take pictures of him, he was like, he started smiling. He was actually really happy that I asked him to take photos of his car, because apparently he's really proud of that car, and that was actually the first car that he had, and his late father actually got him the car when he turned 18, so he's had it for like 30 odd years. And yeah, my fear, my nerves were all in vain, because this interaction was extremely positive and actually quite encouraging for the next people that I decide to approach to do the same. And that's it. Yeah, I was nervous for no reason at all. These are definitely the kind of interactions that I like and that I talked about earlier, the segue that I told you about. And it's really special when you get to see people's faces like light up as soon as you want to take photos or talk about something that's really special to them, really dear to them and close to their hearts. So that was definitely worth it for me. We ended up meeting a few days later in a local park, and I shot a few images of him and the car. And I don't know if you know this, but Lancia has always been connected to the rally world back in the day, and I thought that it made sense to pay homage to it and just shoot the car in its sort of natural environment. And I thought that the mix of the trees, like the mountains and the forest, and the windy roads, they all combined to create this perfect location to just take photos of the car. I remember the light being really harsh on that particular afternoon, and the weather was hot, and this was one of the first shoots that I actually did with my Bronica ETRS. But I think that everything went okay, and Luis told me that he really enjoyed the experience, and this was definitely important to me, obviously. I don't quite know what else to say about this shoot, but I can tell you that there are periods where we all lack inspiration, but giving up is never an option, and it's also quite important, in my opinion, to have different hobbies apart from photography, so we can separate ourselves a bit from the craft and try and get inspiration from other things. And I speak from experience that, like, I know this is not an easy process, but I can promise you that it's usually quite rewarding. One last thing before we wrap up today's video, but I think this is cool to share with you, is that Luis invited me to grab a coffee with him after dinner on that same day that we did the shoot, and I ended up knowing a bit more about himself, and I found out that back in the day he used to be a photographer, and he shot a bunch of 35mm photography, and he made a really big body of work that focused on like small town living here in Portugal, like villages and really remote locations. And apparently he got a lot of that work published in magazines and in local newspapers, which is really cool because I invited him to shoot with me, and he ended up being a photographer, so that's really cool. Anyway, at the end of the gathering, I was about to say goodbye to him, and he was like, no, wait, I have something for you. And I was like, okay. So he grabbed like a little case and gave it to me, and like I opened it, and I was a bit shocked because basically he ended up offering me, a complete stranger, because I mean, anyway, he ended up offering me his Canonet, like the original Canonet, and that was the camera that he used to shoot this body of work that I've just mentioned. So I was a bit shocked, I didn't quite know how to react. I remember just saying thank you and why. And basically he ended up saying that photography was a huge passion of his like 20 years ago, but since then that passion has died, and his new passion is actually music. He's in like local bands and it's basically music. And when I asked him, but why are you giving me this camera? Because I'm sure it's like, even though you're not into photography, it's something that represents that period, right? So why would you gift it to me? And he said that he saw that I started smiling whenever I talked about photography, and he saw the spark of photography in me, and that he felt that it only made sense to pass that camera onto me because I would still make work with it. And yeah, that was such a cool interaction. Like, you get to know these random people and you never know the kind of connections that you might actually develop, and it's just so cool the way everything works. I'm just fascinated with it. I don't know. These for me are definitely the small things that end up being like the bigger ones. And it always pays off to be upfront and genuine about your intentions with people. And I don't know, whenever you can, just have these kind of interactions because they're really cool. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's video. I know this was a bit more chatty than usual. I wanted to share this story with you instead of just showing you a regular video of like, oh, I went and shot this car using my Bronica in this location with Kodak Gold. I want to incorporate a bit more of storytelling in these videos. I just need to get a bit more comfortable with it. But yeah, let me know in the comments what you thought of the video, what you thought of the photos, and drop a like since you're down there already, and just try and help me get this video shown to more people, because you know that's how YouTube works. And subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because that's really good for me and it just helps me grow this community here on YouTube that I want to build so badly, because community is everything. And yeah, that's it. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.